Welcome back to Dave Knows Comics for another How to Draw session. Today's episode is The Joker. Okay, going to be a little different today. Let's look at the equipment, my handy mechanical pencil that I'll be using, and my bigger, thicker mechanical pencil with thicker lead. This is what I'm going to be primarily focusing on, not really the normal big pencil that I usually use. Also got a series of pens here, professional art pens, different sizes, different thicknesses. I'm going to be switching around between all of them just to see what I like and what I'm going for. Also, look at the paper. This is Bristol paper, more professional grade paper, doing a more professional episode. And here's the reason why. I got a brush here for some ink, and here is some ink. I like the way Bristol takes the ink better, especially when painting. My smudge-free eraser, my metered eraser, which I like metered erasers a lot. Also, a whiteout pen I'm going to be using here. And, and gaffer's tape. Gaffer's tape I'm going to be using to hold it down so I don't ruin that great paper. Tissue I'm going to be using as a tool, actually, as well as paper towel to use for actual cleanup. Let's start getting ready to draw. Okay, so, here we go. I'm going to start with the crosshairs, the cross section that I'm going to use for the face, just to give me a guide. And as you can see from my previous videos, that I do like making sure that the eye line, that horizontal line here, is looking downward, because that is the way I actually prefer looking at it. And then we have the ear as well. Alright, now I'm just going to erase it because now I have everything set. I can still see it. I'm going to faintly have the line there, but now I know where the ear and the eyes are going down. Now, the reason I have the eye line facing downward is so it creates a little more of an interesting drawing. The character looking slightly down instead of looking directly in the middle of the paper or screen, or the view, as you will. So this gives me a little more interest and a little more work to play with. Now, I'm moving on to the pre-drawing or gesturing. I'm not so much gesturing as in just getting energy. I'm really just drawing the shape roughly and drawing the shapes and designs to give me an idea, and then I'm going to finalize the details slightly later. So I have that here. And the reason why I'm drawing the Joker is because I find the Joker to be an interesting character. I've drawn the Joker a million times, and I really like the Joker because of all the different decisions you have to make when you're deciding to draw him. For example, I think one of the biggest decisions that people make is when you look at artists, when sometimes a lot of them, when they draw the Joker, they draw him hyper-realistic. They draw him with a really long nose, a really elongated chin, and unrealistic proportions, even if the rest of their style normally is realistic. And I've always been intrigued by that, why some people, will make him look almost Jackal-like or Moon-like, and really take them to extremes. I prefer a more muted Joker, a more subdued Joker. I think part of the fun of it is making him look manic and very, very Jokery, crazy, but still maintaining that human look with him not looking too exaggerated. So I think that's the challenge, and I think that's where the fun is. I think that's how you make the Joker look scarier. So here I am, focusing on that Joker mouth, that Joker smile, because that is the trademark. If you ever want a tough exercise, I think one of the hardest things to do is to draw the Joker sad. There are a couple of frames, especially when you see like Alan Moore's Killing Joke and everything like that, that you can have a sad Joker, and I think it's a challenge to draw the Joker sad, and yet people still know it's the Joker. How do you pull that off? Because that smile is that identifiable with the character. Okay, so gaffer's tape in the way, so I'm going to move the tape out of the way just so I can go ahead and draw the rest of that chin. Don't get lazy. That is one thing you should never do. If you're running out of paper or you're running out of room or space or something's blocking you, move it or draw things the way they're supposed to be. Don't try to force everything. I didn't crunch that chin up above the tape just to get it in there. I kept true to what the shape is supposed to be. I kept that chin where it should be. Okay, and moving on to the eyes. One thing that I think is really important about making him look manic or scary, psychotic or something like that is to make sure his pupils are extra dilated. I think that's a good way to draw crazy, where the pupils are a little bit smaller than they should be. That definitely gives people an off-kilter look. So I think that's important with the Joker, is to make sure his pupils are pretty small. Going back on the lips now, I'm not doing a lot of rendering or on this drawing. I'm just kind of drawing them straight up. I'm going to save all the color work for later on, so I'm not going to be doing too much shading or anything like that if you're expecting that. But I will do the teeth, as you see. I will do the outline of the teeth. And the reason why you don't draw the lines of the teeth all the way around, you just draw them on the corners or the sides, is because it gives you more of a 3D look. It makes it look a little more rounded, three-dimensional. Okay, so now I'm pretty happy with what I got here. So I'm adding these brow lines, giving him an angry look. They're really working on his brow, the cheekbones. The hardest part about the Joker, for me at least, is making sure that, because the Joker, the way his smile, his nose, that elongated nose, his pronounced nostrils, and his smile, and his laugh lines and everything, the way everything works together, his cheekbones, they all have to come together just so. It's not like other characters where the mouth is relatively independent from the nose and the cheeks and everything like that. You can keep them, separate from each other and just draw them, and as long as they're in the right place, everything looks fine. With the Joker, I feel, the way I draw him at least, is that, as you can see, the cheekbone, the laugh line, the smile, everything is connected. Everything goes together. Everything needs to be in the right proportion, so you need to make sure that happens. And that's one of those other decisions when it comes to making the Joker that I find interesting, because not everybody does that, but I definitely do. And going to his hair. Oh, and yeah, here's another big decision. His hair. Do you give him the slick back look? Do you give him the pompadour? Do you give him just curly, crazy hair? And, slick back on the sides. I remember, Neil Adams, there's like the Neil Adams Joker hair. There's also the Bruce Timm design from the Batman anime series kind of hair. So many different places to go with it. I'm going with a sort of pompadour look, but I'm not going full on with it just because, because it's nobody has hair like that anymore. So, although I have drawn that Joker before, it's just, and I'm also trying to make my life easy. So just drawing his hair is a very simple shape with a little curl in front is enough for me. And also, some people do the Joker with two curls. I'm just using the one. This curl is kind of fun to do when you have ink or brush that can be fun to utilize. So I think that's why I made sure he had just one curl. Okay, I'm looking at trying to draw the collar here of his suit, of his shirt, and I'm realizing I'm trying it here. I'm not really loving the way it looks. I think it might be too high up. Adjustment might be needed. And that's a good thing about drawing, especially with pre-drawing with pencil. You get to check it out and say, hey, I like this, I don't like this. What are we going to do about it? Okay, you're going to draw out the rest of the neck and then go from here. Don't really like that. I'm probably going to change it, but no, I'm moving on to his hair. And I'm also not going to go very detailed on the hair. I'm just drawing a couple of lines. Some of these lines I'll keep, some of these lines I won't. Just using them as a gauge right now. Just enough so you get the idea that it's hair, and then where it goes from here, that'll happen more during inking. Okay, so now I just want to finalize things with the pencil. Analyze things more with the pencil. Checking on the lines. And, I like the way this looks. I really do. And it came together a little faster than I expected. He still has that manly look. So, okay, I'm going to start by using the pen. I'm going to be using the number 5 pen. Wait, no, hold on. Yeah, I kind of want to add more stress. Using the cheekbones to actually cut off his eye. He's smiling so wide that the cheekbone is coming up to the eye. But I also want to add these stress lines, these bags under his eyes, and make him look even more manic and make him look more dangerous. Yeah. Yeah, really want to work on the eyes. The Joker's, I had an acting teacher, who says you smile with your eyes. That's how you can tell how big someone's smiling. So I think it's also key. So with somebody smile as predominant as the Joker, I think it's important to remember that. And also going to work on the nose a little bit, because I feel, you know what, I can add a few more details. I'm going to add a little outline to the bridge of the nose there. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now we can move on to the pen. Now we can start inking a little bit. Alright, so when it comes to inking, and the way I did this pre-drawing, I did it rough, but a lot of it, I didn't do it as crazy gestury as I mentioned before, but I'm going to use it to the point where I drew things out for the most part the way I wanted it. Now it's time to go over things with a pen and only keep the lines I really, really want. So when you do that kind of sketchy kind of thing with the pencil where you go over lines over and over and over again, that's what I did here, and now I'm just going to be using the pen to go to one. Alright, so I don't like that thickness. Alright, there you go. I'm going to be using this one. For the pen. Now, of course, it's going to matter how big your drawings are and how big the paper is. That depends on, and your particular style too, depends on how thick of a pen you'll get used to. Normally I prefer a thinner pen, but for this I have no problem using this one. This is number 3, if I'm not mistaken. As you can tell, I don't really look at it all that much. But the thing I like about this one is that the thicker the pens, they keep their tip, they keep their edge a little longer. The really thin ones, I destroy them because I press pretty hard on pens, and so yeah. But that technical issue aside, I'm going to be using this. So, okay, so right now I'm just going over, as I said, one single line. Now, the eyebrows, I did do that sketchy thing with the pen a little more, but that's because they're eyebrows. I want to show that they're fuzzy, that they're hairs. But with these lines here, I'm trying to be as smooth as uniform and get it all in one shot as much as I can. I might have to lift the pen up and get my hand moving, get the motion going. That's something I think is very important to know, is that sometimes it takes a couple of passes before your hand starts operating, or getting the flow down of the look you want to go through, because people don't realize that. If you're doing multiple strokes, it creates more jagged texture to it, but if you do one smooth line, it makes things a little easier to look at. So, creating one solid line is harder to do than using multiple passes with a pen. So, but for the lips, I want to be smooth as possible. Now, the pen jittered a little bit. I shook it a little bit while I was tracing over it. Didn't mean to, but it creates that little jagged edge. But I'm gonna have to live with it, because you keep scratching over it again, then you get that sketchy look, which I'm not necessarily going for. Even though that the look does work for the Joker, because it makes him look, more serial killer-y, I think. Anyway, yeah. So, okay. So, this is where. Now inking, this is where things can get dicey, because a lot of people let the pressure get to them. I don't, because everything is fixable, even though there's ink to it. I know without it being pencil, your safety net's kind of gone, and that can be rough on people. And I know one of the major parts of why people don't like inking either is because they work really hard to draw something great, and then they do, but then they're like, oh, I gotta draw it over again. People, you need to have the confidence to know not only could you draw something amazing once, but you have to have the confidence to know you can do it again. I remember in college, I was doing a drawing class because I wanted an easy A, and we were doing charcoal drawing. It was on perspectives, and instead of the assignment for the day was we were supposed to draw a hallway, and everybody just took different spots in the hallway, and we're just drawing what we see. And instead of focusing on the hallway first, which was the primary focus of the exercise, of the assignment, was to draw the hallway for perspective, I started by drawing this girl that was sitting in front of me, because I draw people. I like drawing people, so I just drew the girl in front of me. And then I started drawing the room, and by the time I did that, I realized she was in the wrong spot. I kind of drew the drawing around her, but the perspective of the room was perfect. She was in the wrong place, and I thought I drew her perfectly. And I didn't want to get rid of her, but the teacher told me, no, I have to, so I was like, that was my big, courage test, because I was so upset because I thought I thought I drew her perfectly, and I didn't want to get rid of that, but it was heartbreaking, but I got rid of it and drew it again. And to be honest, no, I don't think I did as good of a job on the second time around, but still, the point is, you eventually learn that, yeah, I'll get rid of this and just draw it again. It's no big deal. And, sooner or later, the more confidence you build with it, and the more used to doing that you get, which hopefully you don't do it too often, you eventually learn to just get over it and just know that, hey, I'll draw it again, and I'll draw it even better, possibly. So if you have that hesitation when it comes to inking, definitely avoid it. Plus, the other good thing about inking is when you're using white paper, the black ink stands out more. There's more contrast. And as I've told you guys in other videos, contrast is key. Contrast makes things look really good. It makes colors pop. And the more you can contrast things in everything, texture, styles, techniques, and especially color, you can get such a great reaction out of things. Because look, the ink makes it stand out more, the lines are even better, so this is one advantage you're going to get through ink that you can't get from pencil. And also using certain other parts of inks to your advantages. Like now, okay, here's a great example. So like with a pencil, you can do shading under the eyes, absolutely. Different gray values, you can definitely accomplish that look. But with the pen here, I'm adding these scratches. I'm adding these scratches to the, coming out from the inner parts of the eye to really give him these bags under his eyes and to make him look really distressed. And even the laugh lines too. Now, while I was using smooth lines for the lips, I want to use that scratchiness for the pencil with the pen to make sure that things look more manic, especially towards the more intense parts of the face, the parts that do the most reacting, the parts that are most expressive, like the inner corner of your eyes when you scrunch up your face and you get angry. That's those stress lines. Where do they come from? Think about that when you're drawing a face. Like, where are the points of tension coming from? The corners of your mouth is where the smiling happens. That's where you have it. It's not on the teeth. The teeth are just there. They don't really move all that much. But when you smile, it creates in the corners of your mouth. That's where the expression's happening. Corners of your eyes. That's where, and the little ridge above your nose. That's where the expression's happening. So, all right, and back to the shirt collar, which I don't like. As I said, I don't really like it. It's too high up. So as you can see, I'm not sticking to the pre-drawing. I'm drawing the collar here much lower, as you can plainly see, and I'm going to erase that previous line. I'm going to do that later on. But yeah, there's the thing. That's the good thing about the pre-drawing. Sometimes it's there, but it's there for you to copy, but all the times it's just there as a guide to let you know that, hey, I don't like this, let me do it. You don't have to stick to the pre-drawing, and I don't always. I use it for exactly what it's meant to be used for. So I lowered that shirt collar. Working on his neckline. Alright, okay, so I have enough of the rough pen inking done, so I'm going to move on to the brush now. Especially the way I am when it comes to drawing and everything like that. I kind of bounce around all over the place. I don't have like a strategic mode that I stick to. I just kind of go around doing what I feel like doing, and I'm like, ooh, I want to draw that now, and I just kind of jump around. Okay, so here's the ink. So bottle cap being used for ink because it really takes a small amount, so I don't want a big container of it, so I just use something very small like a bottle cap, and I always have one lying around. Okay, so I'm gonna stick the hair now. I'm using the brush for the hair because I think brushes really do great jobs when it comes to doing hair, just because A, you're covering more surface area, and B, some of the brush strokes, especially when the brush gets dried out a little bit, can add some cool looks like it was hair, because each of the bristles of the brush are hair-like. So especially as it starts drying out, you can start seeing that texture a little bit more. Or just doing what I'm doing now, just creating a little bit of texture by just pulling the brush up. And instead of painting one even line, by doing it this way, you create all those little imperfections, all those little lines, so they almost seem like the follicles coming out of the hair. Even though I did use the pencils to make that initial line, that's just my guide here. And I'm using the brush, each of these individual strokes, to create that follicle-like look. And the great thing about the brush is, if I go over again and see, here's that curl. This is why it's fun to use this curl with the brush, because playing with the brush, you can create this look, and it's really fun the way, that this curl is going to thicken up and thin out in certain areas. I'm going to go over this with a pen again to make sure that's a final outline, but that's what I wanted. So here we go. And also with the brush, it's going to leave certain gaps, and you're also going to be able to... the more practice you get with the brush, the better. You're also going to get to go over certain spots. Again, some parts will be darker, some parts will be lighter, and that creates this great uneven look, which I like because that makes the hair look a little more natural. It makes it look more imperfect. So here I am working with the brush. Now, this brush isn't the super smallest. There is a 0 size brush, which I'd rather use. I'm using a 1 right here. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but just something for you guys to know. The finer points would have allowed me to do a little bit more work and had a little more control. This brush is a little bit large, so I kind of lost some of the control. And now, as you can see, I'm not doing the follicle look here because I'm tracing around the ear. So this is when I use the brush as just one solid brush stroke, because I'm not doing the little follicle look. I'm doing a straight up around the ear. Okay, and now here we go. Now, as I was just doing the border with the brush, this wasn't 100% intentional. Yeah, I was looking to leave a little parts of it white in the middle to represent the shine, the gleam, if you will. But I was just painting the you know, just painting these brush strokes around the border of the hair, and it gave me this. You see this unfinished white area in the middle of the hair. That was not 100% intentional. I didn't want to do it, but it gave me this really cool look. And now I was going to touch that up a bit, but I like the way this looks, so I don't really feel the need to more intentionally go over it. I'm just going to kind of leave it. And the ear, this weird, goofy shape of the human ear that we all have. Brushes are really good for this too, because you could just squiggle a bunch of nonsense in the middle of an ear shape, and then you got yourself an ear. Oh, and I can't forget about the hair on the back of his neck. I'll lower that down. Should get this. Now, nothing fancy here. I'm just gonna, color it in. It's such a small part and non-consequential part of the hair. So, all right. Oh, and the brush is also good for shadowing, as I think a lot of you guys know. So I'm going to be using it for the hair, for the neckline, these ridges in the neck for the expression. Makes it look a lot better. I like that. Alright. Now, if you'll notice, even though I inked the collar lower, I forgot to adjust the neckline, the lines on the neck lower, so I just kind of left them there, and I'll just fix it in digital. Okay, so here we go. Using the brush still, looking at it, the shadow under the nose, the shadow on ridge. Yeah, now I'm just using the brush to create some shadows. Thicker lines that the thin pen wouldn't do. And I'm also going to go in, once again, the stress points, the parts where the expression happens. The inside of the eyes, that little divot under your lip. That's where the expression's happening. So I want to make sure I point particular attention to it. And also shadow being cast by the lip. I'm not making it photorealistic. It almost looks so patchy there, but I'm doing that to make sure that it maintains a little bit of a cartoony look, which is my general style to this. So now I'm going over, so I'm going over the bottom. I'm going over the bottom of the eye line, going over the bottom of the chin, of the cheekbone, of the nose. I'm adding shadows in, and this little ridge in between the eyes, making sure that there's a thicker line anywhere I need it to really represent the shadow, to make the line heavier. Make that lines heavier where it counts. So I'm going over the points where there is stress, where the expression happens, and I'm also going on to the underside of things to create shadow. Just notice a few things with the hair I want to fix real quick. Okay, there you go. Alright. Okay, let's see. Anywhere else? Yeah, that's right. The chin itself should get a little bit of a shadow casting because it is a chin, and it definitely casts a big shadow. So let's go over the lower line of the chin right there, and move the tape to make sure that we get the front part of the chin as well, just like that. Okay. Now, scanning over things, seeing if there's anything I miss, adding a little bit more to the corners of the eyes. I'm really trying to get all the finer details, making sure I don't leave anything up right here on the other side of the lip. Let's create some separation. As you can see a little bit of the cheek here on the other side of his face. I want to cover that up, or at least cast it in shadow. And since I'm casting things in the shadow on that side of his face, the left side, our left, I want to make sure that I go over that again. So now I'm going to start focusing more on that. Oh, and the eyebrows. Brushes are really good for eyebrows. They can be really cool, because you can do things like this and that. The imperfections of a brush, especially if you just add a little shake to your hand, if you don't go completely fluid with it, you add a little bit of tremble to your hand, it can create this erratic pattern, which I like especially for eyebrows, especially the Joker's eyebrows, because if you make them look a little more distressed or not perfect, that's that kind of adds to the craziness of his eyes. Alright, so, going over everything. Alright, yeah, and I'm going to use it a little bit to create the inner pupil of his smaller eye. Okay. And yeah, so far so good. I'm liking where this is going. But let's get more creative with it. Let's get a little more fancy with things. So, because this is good. This drawing's pretty good, but we can definitely improve it. So, this is what I'm going to do now. I'm taking the thicker pen, and I'm adding a couple of lines through that white space I left in the middle of his hair. This is just going to add a few lines to make it represent hair a little bit more, even in the gleam part of his hair. And I'm also going to go over the bottom here by just drawing a little bit of follicles here. And yes, and I have to go over this curl right here. I have to add a little bit more. So yeah. Then what's really cool is, like I said, it's about contrast, so different techniques. So you have the pen making these little follicles, but then you also have the brush itself making those imperfect follicle lines along the hairline. And by combining these techniques, it creates a cooler look. You know, add a little more variety, a little more contrast. It's not going to be, it's not the same thing over and over again. You know, you have the contrast, the thick lines, the thin lines, and that changes up the playing field. And why not go back over with the pen and add some more stretch, you know, scratch it out a little more, but underneath the eyes, get that more dangerous look to them. All right, yeah, okay, good. Now we're at the part of the drawing where you step back and you look at it to see where you're going at, and I want more shadow. I think the chin should be casting shadow. Talking about casting shadow, I definitely want more of one being cast by that big chin of his, that pointy chin of his. Now we're at the point of drawing where you can look at it and yeah, it's fine, but we can always up it. So here's as I said, I was going to use the tissue as a tool. So I'm created a stencil, a little stamp with it, dip it in ink, and it's going to dab, not the dance dab, this using like a stamp. So just dip it in ink and creating this pattern, and the more you do this, is going to add a nice little background to your drawing. And you can do anything you want. If you have a regular stamp, you could use it. If you have anything with any kind of texture whatsoever that can go in ink, you can use it to create a pattern in the background. And this is kind of fun to do. Takes me back to like being a kid and drawing and trying new things, or if the drawing tools they had for kids were more were gimmicky and had cartoonish aspects or silly and were like have fun or whatever, and that's the great part of drawing. So this is fun to do. But my camera's about to run out, so I'll just finish this up and then scan it in digitally, and here adding color. You know, I like to add color digitally because I think you can do a lot more fun stuff with the computer, and it also cuts down on cost for materials and stuff like that. And it's a little bit easier, and you don't have to worry about making choices. You can play around and experiment with. So here's the final drawing. Hope you guys like it. Thanks so much for watching. But stick around and subscribe to Dave Knows Comics. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, Dave knows.